can say, you're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we have as our guest State Senator Annazette Collins. Our regular viewers would know it was just about 2 years ago, maybe a little less. We're taping this show on October 23rd, 2011. Was about 2 years ago you were running in the Democratic primary for the 7th Congressional District seat, or so you thought, right?
Well, so I thought.
Basically, when Congressman Danny Davis decided he wasn't going to move on to Cook County Board President, right, you got out of that race.
That's right.
But you were a state rep then.
I was a state rep.
And you've been a state rep for 12 years.
For 12 years.
And before that, it was DCFS. You were out on the street. I mean that in a kind way. You were working out on the street, not working the streets. I always get myself in trouble here.
All right, because we was working to protect the kids who were sexually abused.
That's right. And so you were on sort of a line person as opposed to an administrator, which is what you became, right?
Right. I started off as a line person, child protection, investigating sex abuse allegations, and then from there I became an administrator. All right.
And so now you've got a tough, well, you got a primary.
I have a primary. Every election I have a primary.
Even when you were state rep, you'd every time they'd come at you?
Every election I had at least 4 people run against me, okay, every election.
And what's the state senate district that you represent?
So now it's the 5th district, okay, and we go now to, actually the district didn't change much in the re-election, in the redistricting it didn't change much. So I go east to Canal Street, go west to Cicero, we go north to Dickens, and then we go south to 22nd Street. So that covers North Lawndale, East and West Garfield, the West Loop, Lincoln Park, Bucktown, and Wicker Park.
Okay. And Ricky Hendon had that seat for a number of years before.
He did.
And you were appointed by what
by the Democratic committeeman of that district.
Right. When he decided to retire, so to speak.
Yeah,
Ricky's retired 6 or 7 months ago?
Yes.
Okay, so now you've got the primary, several candidates are running against you, right?
Yes.
Patricia Van Pelt Watkins is one?
Yes.
We know Patricia, she was here on our show, she ran for mayor, yes, in the last go-around?
Yes.
All right, so what's the biggest issue between you and Patricia?
I don't know that there's any different issues between Patricia and I. Patricia wants to do a lot of things that I've already accomplished.
What's the most that you've accomplished as, well, you've only been a state senator for 7 months, right?
Yeah, but I was a legislator for the last 12 years.
So what did you accomplish? What was your biggest accomplishment in that area?
Well, the biggest thing, what most people would think, would be creating a Department of Juvenile Justice. We created the Department from Juvenile Justice because it was a division of the Department of Corrections. And we made that department separate, a standalone department, so they can get its own resources. That was important because most of the resources go to the adults. And when they go to the adults, we don't put any program dollars or resources into the juveniles. And we wanted to spend that money on the front end as opposed to spending it on the back end, and put the money into community services, you know, lower the population so that hopefully our kids can have an aftercare that will be directly catered towards the needs of the children.
Your kids can have a what?
It's an aftercare program. So
Applicator?
Aftercare.
Oh, aftercare.
Like parole. So
okay,
before it was a parole.
After when they come out.
So
when they come out of juvie, was that what they call it, juvenile detention centers?
Not the detention center. Actually, this is actually the Department of Juvenile Justice. So this is once the kid is adjudicated. Okay. When they're in the detention center, they haven't been adjudicated.
Okay, and when they've been adjudicated, where do they serve? Is there some?
The state facilities.
Do these juveniles serve in a different facility than the adult jails, right?
Yes.
So where do they serve? What kind of places?
Well, they're maximum security places, most of them.
For juveniles?
For juveniles.
Maximum security?
Almost. The way they're built, they're old, dilapidated buildings.
But they're just for kids under 17?
Yes.
Okay.
But the system, you can be up to 21, but most of the kids transfer out. They can parole them until about 21, but we're trying to get rid of a lot of things. So most of the juvenile justice laws that has been changed in the last 10 years was because I've changed them. For instance, we had a law that said a kid, if they were in 500 feet of a school or a church or a housing project, they would automatically get charged with a felony if they had a joint, like one reefer. And that was just wrong to do that.
If they had a joint within what distance of the school?
500 feet in front of a school, housing project, a church, it was automatically. They were automatically convicted of a felony, and it didn't matter the quantity.
Why the proximity to those places? Why would that make it so much more severe?
Well, because back in the 80s, they called themselves making it safer because a lot of people were complaining that, that our kids were
these
involved.
People were like pushing drugs, so it wasn't.
Right.
But they didn't have to find them selling drugs, just that they had
Just
the
that
possession.
they had it, right. And so at 13, if you were convicted of a felony, not that you served any time in jail, but you still was convicted of a felony, so you couldn't go to school, and you couldn't
get a job.
Couldn't get a job.
You're an ex-felon.
You can't even live in housing, public housing, any of those things like that. And even now, so most people now live till they're about 88 is the average
So
age.
that law's been changed?
Oh yeah, we
so
changed
they're
that
not
law.
felons if they...
Well, now every kid now go before juvenile court, where before they didn't. They was automatically charged with a felony conviction. So we're not saying that they're not going to be charged with the felony, but it wouldn't be automatically. Those kids will go before juvenile court. The judge will make a decision, look at the case each individual case.
So a lot of your accomplishment, you would say, is what you've done to reform the juvenile justice system. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
But the things that, and that's important, and actually we don't talk enough about that, I don't think, and what people are doing and what the governor's done and so forth. Instead, we should say, since we're taping on October 23rd, people kind of talk about the sexy topics, right? Right. Sexy is relative, since we're talking politics and public policy, you know. Right. But, you know, you're going back to the veto session.
Yes.
Comes up. People will be watching this at different times. We're taping on the 23rd. The veto session starts on October 25th.
That's
and then you take a week off, and then you come back again on November 8th, I think. Okay?
Right, probably around
And the people
that
are
time.
thinking the veto session, it's supposedly the idea is that you will be there as state House members, state Senate members to consider overriding anything that the governor has vetoed, right?
That's correct.
That's the theory.
That's the theory.
But in point of fact, you can legislate anything de novo, right?
No, yes, we introduced legislation at that time. We fixed some things that we didn't finish up in the fall.
So the sexy topics here is gaming, casinos. It's always everybody's on their mind because everybody likes to be a gamer, sort of, right?
I guess.
Game change and all that sort of stuff, right?
Right.
Okay, so gaming is on there because currently we have how many casinos operating in the state of Illinois? 9, I think?
9.
10? Maybe 10.
And 9, well, we wanted the 10th license.
Yeah.
Right, well, we opened the casino in
Rosemont?
Des Plaines.
Des Plaines, yeah. It wasn't going to be Rosemont. Okay.
Right.
So there's 10 operating now.
Yes.
Around the state of Illinois. People know they can go out to Des Plaines and they can gamble their life away.
Gamble.
Right? Where else can they go to gamble?
And I think it's in Aurora, Elgin, East St. Louis, a couple other places.
A few places downstate that nobody ever goes to.
Right.
I mean, who goes downstate? I mean, really, seriously. Folks, if you're watching this downstate, I'm just kidding because we're sometimes there on the channel. There are lots of people. 30 to 40% of the population of Illinois is downstate,
That's
right?
right.
South of I-80, is that what we call downstate?
Yes.
And west of somewhere else, who knows?
Right.
Okay, so there are these casinos around, and then Lou Lang and others say, oh, we're missing a great opportunity. We should have more casinos. And Lou would like to have come on to talk about that. He's been the main guy in the House pushing gaming, right?
Oh, yeah, for a long time.
And
well,
who
ever
pushes
since
it in
I've
the
been
Senate?
there.
Who pushes it in the Senate?
You know what?
There's no look-alike to Lou Lang in the Senate, right? He's unique.
You know, I'm trying to see who's, you know what, I just got to the Senate, so I don't know who sponsored the Senate bill. I'm not sure.
But in any case, so that's the Senate, the legislation passed, right?
It passed. It passed the House and the Senate. So,
and it did what? It added how many more casinos? 10 casinos? 10 more casinos?
Well, it's going to be a casino in the south suburbs, one in, well, we did the Rosemont one, and then one in Chicago.
Right now, but didn't the legislation have more than just a few?
Well, yeah. Well,
I mean, Quinn wants only 5 casinos, right? 5 more casinos.
Stations, you know, so some people are concerned about the lottery, the slots at the racetracks, at the airports.
Slot machines.
Slot machines, so the governor is concerned about that.
The governor doesn't think we should have those there.
Right, so he's...
And he also wants to cut down the number to 5. To Chicago and where else?
Chicago and one other place.
But
the south suburbs want it really bad.
Quinn's going to put one in the south suburbs. And he's going to put one in
Rockford was going to have one. Rockford was going to get one, and 2 other places are going to get one.
So you're not sure how many Quinn wants, whether he wants 4 or 5 or what?
Quinn hasn't said exactly what he wants. He just said what he didn't want, and he wants to rewrite the legislation. And he has a proposal. I haven't seen it yet, and we're going to hear it maybe. And in session,
you're going to hear it? I mean, he's going to send it down. That's how it works. He'll send down his proposal. So this stuff was not, it was passed but not quite vetoed. The idea was that you folks
Well, first of all, they didn't give it to him for a while.
Just right now. So he hasn't had to.
So he hasn't had to deal with it. But he knew what was in the language, and so he's been thinking about it and saying what he what he's going to do and what he's not going to do. But when we get down there, we may take it up and we may not.
So in simple language, for simple plain language, okay, for the regular person out there, what's going on is legislation was passed, and now you and others in the State House and the State Senate and the leaders and the governor are sort of, you know, trying to get together and see if they can modify things so the governor will be okay with it and still keep the support that others wanted things in the bill for them to support it. So you may or may not get a gaming bill. You may or may not get a Chicago casino this year, right? Would that be fair to say?
Well, that's fair to say. But
you would like to see a Chicago casino?
Well, I think that I did vote for
you voted for the
I
legislation.
voted for the
So you voted
casino.
for a Chicago casino?
Yes, I did.
You're on record. That's your. You'd like to see that because you think it would create jobs, or you think it's just good entertainment, good clean fun. You know, have a gaming casino here in Chicago. Why do we need a casino? I mean, just,
well, we don't need a casino.
But why'd you support it?
I supported a casino because it would bring jobs.
You think?
I think it would bring jobs to the city of Chicago.
Good jobs, casino
Good
jobs. People working blackjack
People working
tables.
Blackjack tables, $12 an hour and or more, and they can make money in tips. It's close proximity to their homes.
But where's it drained from? Because it's like entertainment. You could either go to a movie, you could go to a sporting event, you could go to a casino.
Well,
so if you get people going to a casino, doesn't it just drain jobs away from other entertainment? So one industry contracts and that industry expands, right?
Well, the jobs.
You see the new jobs for people working on construction. What you don't see is they're draining resources from somewhere else, aren't they?
I don't think so. I think it's going to create new jobs, and I think it's going to be in the middle of the city.
We've known as the Las Vegas of the Midwest.
Long-term jobs, and I think depending on where it's going to be located. They were at one point talking about it being at the United Center. I'm totally opposed to that, but I do think if they put it somewhere where we can attract people that's coming in.
Like where?
Over there by 22nd Street, by Mercy Hospital over there was one of the sites.
22nd and what?
Like on King Drive.
Oh, okay,
over
so
there,
near the convention center.
Near the convention center. So those are the people we're trying to attract, the convention people, tourism, those kind of people. So if you put it at Navy Pier, will be a great spot. If you put it at United Center, will be horrible. United Center is the middle of a community. We don't want our community to be impacted on that. Right, it's already, these are the very people. That's your
area too. That's
right
in your area.
It's right in my district. Right. And so I was
So if somebody came up to you and said, look, you know, we could make life good for you if you supported that.
No.
You know? Would somebody do that? Would that be called an illegal bribe?
That's not a bribe. I don't know.
They're saying they can make life good for you? What would they mean by it?
I don't know. I don't
Has
talk like that.
Nobody
talks like that to me.
Anymore? They used
never.
To.
Who?
Yeah.
No, nobody ever talked to me like that. So, but the thing is, when you're trying to negotiate where a casino could be, those are kinds of things that they bring up. And when they brought up the United Center, I'm like, I can never support that at the United Center. But yes, I want my people to work there because our people in our community need jobs.
Okay. And another big issue here is pensions, right?
Pensions
and
is
the
a
gaming.
big deal.
The legislation wasn't passed, but it was proposed. There's bills introduced that would significantly reform state employee pensions. State employees, current employees, would have to pay more for health care, more into the retirement system, or they would get a retirement plan that was a little less generous than the current plan. Did I get that right? Is that the proposal?
That's the proposal, and things change. I know I'm under currently have a different pension system than Speaker Madigan, for example. Those people that came in at that time has a totally different pension system than myself. And the people who started this year in the General Assembly would have a different system. So,
but are you for that? You didn't have a chance to vote for it. Would you vote for that kind of reform to significantly increase what state employees pay if they want to keep their current system?
Well, I am for changing the system.
You are.
And how drastic.
It has to be reformed.
It has to be reformed. At the time we started pensions, of course, we didn't expect people to live to
Would you support that?
I'm going to support
people say the Democrats in particular and politicians in general in the election year, they don't want to do anything. They're afraid of reform. They're afraid of taking a vote because you know what? Then
I don't know that
some of your competitors are going to hang that around your neck and say, oh, you know what? Annazette Collins, she wants to raise the contributions from state employees and get state employees in your district not to vote for you.
Well, first of all, we're not going to change any current state employees. I don't
You're not?
think anybody.
Oh, no, but no, it does change it for current employees. That's the proposal.
And that proposal has not been
You don't
called
want to do
for a
that.
vote. That
So you don't want to do
proposal
that.
has not been called for a vote, and it has not been called
But
for a vote because most people would never dream of changing current employees.
Are
when
you like that?
sign
You
up.
wouldn't change it for current employees?
No, I'm not.
Not
gonna
what's
change.
accrued and what's vested, but for the future.
For the future, but that doesn't include current employees.
No, it doesn't include current employees.
No,
it means what they could pay in the future and what they would
No,
get in the
new
future.
Hirees. New
No,
hirees.
that's already been done. Isn't it?
We've changed for new
sure? 'Cause I
hirees.
thought
We've changed for new hirees.
Yeah, but now the question is, do you
there's
want to
question,
change
do
it
we wanna
for
change
current?
it for current employees?
And you don't want to do that?
And I'm not going to do that.
All right, you don't want to do that.
Because, no,
But then you're
it's
going to
not
have a major
fair.
problem because if you don't do that, the pensions, you got like $90 billion unfunded liabilities. How do you deal with that?
I don't know. We need to come up with some way, but I
Okay.
just don't think it's fair when you start into a system and you have one thing and then you change it all of a sudden. It's just not fair, and so
Fair.
we don't
That's
have
my
to
kids
vote.
used to always say, it's not fair.
It's
you
not
ever?
fair.
You've got kids?
Of course, I got two.
They always say it's not fair. And didn't you tell them, I don't want to hear that word again, you know?
No.
Because when kids say that's not fair, there's no meaning to that.
It is a meaning to that
Yeah.
because if it's like signing a
You
contract.
let your kids get away with that in the
If
house?
you
They
sign-
said not fair and you'd back down and
If you
they'd
sign
win
a
that fight?
contract and you say that I'm entering this contract with this agreement, then you expect that agreement to be earned, and that's just like what current employees. They've entered into a contract when
But there are people at the Augusta law firm of Sidley and Austin who say the Constitution permits those changes. You're not going to challenge the law firm partners
We
at
have
Sidley
to
and
change
Austin?
the Constitution to do that.
No, they say you don't.
Yeah, we do.
All right, we can't resolve that now. So we're going to go on to Commonwealth Edison.
Okay.
There was legislation. Did you support that legislation?
Yes, I did.
You did,
Yes.
and the governor vetoed it, outright veto. He didn't fool
did.
around. He says bad legislation, right?
Bad legislation.
And is he wrong?
Well,
I guess you're saying so because you voted for it. So the ComEd wants a big rate hike, and that means you're supporting a big rate hike for the people who live in your district.
This summer, it was very hot all summer, and we had a lot of power outages.
A lot of storms.
A lot of storms.
A lot of trees went down.
And things that we couldn't control. So if we put the infrastructure underground, where we have a lot of overhead
Smart grid.
ground, the smart grid, people could control their own heat.
You think?
And air conditioning. Yeah, it's been working in a lot of different places. Plus, the infrastructure, you have to fix infrastructure, whether it's roads and bridges, whether it's buildings.
Yeah, but isn't it a lot of money
whether
they
it's
want? They
ComEd.
want a guaranteed increase in the rate hike, $3 billion.
Well, they've made some adjustments to that as well, but you
Are they
have
going to
to
get $3 billion
change.
more in revenue? Is that what it is? Or are they going to spend $3
You
billion?
have to
What's the $3
change
billion?
You have to change the infrastructure. That's what you need to do. And if you put it underground, when the power outages, when we have these storms, that's unforeseen. You can't control that. That's on God. He controls all of that. So we have to be able to put the.
Okay, so you think the smart grid's the way to go?
I think people can
But
control their
and
heat.
give ComEd the rate increase because
People
they need
can
it if they're
control.
going to
We
make
have
these
to
investments.
fix what's broken.
Does ComEd give you contributions?
to-
Have they given you contributions?
We have to fix what's broken.
But has Commonwealth Edison
We
given you
have to
contributions?
fix what's broken.
No, but you're not answering my question.
Whether ComEd gives me a donation or not has nothing to do
But
with.
they do. It's public.
fixing our
Just tell me. It's public. People can look.
Fixing our
It's public.
infrastructure. Of course, so you know the answer.
So
to
what
that.
is the answer?
Yes,
They did.
ComEd
Yes,
gives me.
How much did they give you?
I don't know how much they gave me.
If they gave you less, do you
You would
think
have
maybe
to-
you wouldn't support this?
No, I don't think so. I think that if we don't fix our roads and bridges and the infrastructure, buildings, roads, Commonwealth Edison, the grid, that's why our power outage, all of it is above ground. We need to put it underground so when we have power outages, it won't go out. So in the long run.
What's the biggest issue for the people in your district?
People, in the long run,
No,
people
just in general.
win.
In your district, the 5th district.
The 5th
district
district,
a lot of poverty
People
there.
are not
West
working.
Side, East Side,
people
Garfield,
are not
right?
working. We have a lot of people in our community who are ex-offenders, and they go back, they go to jail.
What's,
and those
what's the
people come
fundamental
back.
problem? Is it just that there isn't a job, or do these folks have more fundamental problems than that?
Well, first of all,
your
we're
district.
not educated.
Ah, okay, education.
And then that's
These people
the
did not
biggest
get a
thing.
good education, did they?
They did not get a good education.
Many of them went to the Chicago public schools and they didn't get a good education.
That's correct.
A lot of them graduated and they didn't get a good education. A lot
Well,
of them dropped out.
a lot of our
dropped
kids
out.
are dropped out.
Okay.
And
So fundamentally, would you say that's the most important thing, is to improve the quality of education?
fundamentally, first of all, their parents need jobs. When their parents get good paying jobs, then their children, they will be more in tune to educating their children. So right now, they're not focused on education. I believe that the reason why I focus on
So
juvenile
more important than
justice,
improving the quality of education
The
is
reason
figuring out
why-
to give them jobs?
Yes, you have to give their parents
What about doing both?
works.
What about doing both?
You
Improving the
you
quality
wanted
of
me to
education.
choose.
Okay.
So now I'm
well,
choosing.
number two
the first
behind
thing
jobs
is
would be quality of education.
Education. First of all, the parents need to work. The children, and if you want to take it and say adults and children need to be educated. Their parents need to work. Okay. If you allow parents to work, they can take care of their children and they can play a part in the education of their children.
All right. But more than they can play a part in the education of their children, because sometimes kids are not blessed with two parents who are going to be able to help them with their education. Sometimes they have one parent, and sometimes that parent does a great deal. Many people are raised with a single parent, and that person does quite well. But often kids have no parents who are involved in their education. And what do we do with those kids? Do we just say, okay, you lose because you don't have parents involved? Because sometimes we can change and we can encourage, as the mayor wants to do. But sometimes, even if we encourage, it's not going to happen. And so what do we do to improve the quality of education for kids who are not getting read to? There are not books in their house.
I think it takes
There's violence all around them. There's drugs. What do we do with those kids?
Well, our school system should have those things.
They should.
First of all, it's a community problem. It takes a village to raise our children.
Let's stick to the schools.
But you are talking about the schools because your question was, but
we went around this. We're going to short circuit this because people want to watch our last show. They can go watch 2 years ago. So we're not going to repeat that whole exchange because you know what I'm getting at.
No, I don't.
You don't?
Actually, I don't.
All right, you should watch our last show, but then you know.
Okay.
Because remember, when I asked you how much we spend in the Chicago public schools, you said per kid $7,000 or $8,000.
That's correct.
And I said that's completely wrong, and it is. With all due respect, we spend on average in the Chicago public schools $15,000 per kid per year. And I think every legislator should know that. So if you're a legislator out there and you dispute that, and even if you're not in Chicago, you should know that because Chicago is very important. The Chicago public school budget, and ask JC, Jean-Claude, what's the guy's new superintendent? Yeah, I should know. Yeah, I'm blanking on his name.
But anyway, our kids...
Brizard, Jean-Claude Brizard. And so
our kids, if we're giving them... First of all, it takes a village to raise a kid. That's the first thing. It's not just dollars that raise that.
No, but let's stick to dollars for a second.
No, we're not going to just stick with dollars for a second.
No, not
we are going to stick to the whole thing.
It takes a village to raise a kid.
It takes a village to raise a kid. So if you don't have two parents,
but you know the answer to that is it takes a family to raise a kid.
But if you don't, you said in the absence of two parents, who's going to raise the kids? Everyone's going to raise the kid.
No,
that's our problem because we choose
schools need to come up with a substitute for it because we're spending $15,000.
We're spending, all of the schools do not get $15,000 per pupil. They should.
Some get more?
And some schools, depending on the schools and how they pay their teachers and what schools, the schools in the west side of Chicago don't get the same amount of dollars that the schools on the north side. They don't get the same resources.
You can document that?
Yes, we can document that.
We'll do a program on that.
Okay,
Let's get
we'll
J.C. Brizard.
Now, it's not J.C. Brizard.
Okay.
And so the point is that it takes every one of us to raise our children.
That's your point. You know my point?
That is my point.
My point is...
And it's not just the education. It's not just those dollars. And so if you don't have two parents, because some parents die. So you mean to tell me because they don't have... Yeah.
No. No, my point is I want to give... Here's my proposal. I want to take that $15,000 on average and say every parent or every kid is going to be given the opportunity to have that spent on his education. And I want you to go to the education committee and say if there's a school in Chicago that's getting $18,000 and somebody's getting $12,000, you're going to do something about it. Second thing,
just look. New Trier School and the Maywood School District.
Don't bring in New Trier. New Trier has nothing to do with it.
But
New Trier is not in Chicago.
You're talking about dollars, though.
No, New Trier is not in Chicago.
It's the state of Illinois, though.
Okay, no.
It is the state of Illinois. Chicago. But we are talking about Illinois public schools. Okay. No, are we not?
I'm more concerned about the kids in Chicago. I'm more concerned about the kids in your district.
I'm concerned about every single child.
The kids in New Trier are fine. You don't have
to legislate.
You don't have to be concerned about that.
Yes, I have to be concerned about every kid in Illinois. You got to be concerned about the kids in your district. The kids in Maywood, first of all, get the same amount of kids get the same amount of money as the kids in New Trier. And New Trier kids are scoring much higher than the Maywood kids.
You want to come on and do a show about New Trier? We'll do that sometime.
It's the same amount of dollars. So it's not just dollars. I agree with you. We need those equal dollars. Chicago public schools need equal dollars.
They don't need more money.
We need music. We need art. We need
we need competition.
Recess.
We need
recess.
competition. We need competition.
We need people telling our kids that you can do it, that yes, you can make it, as opposed to focusing on
Senator,
those 1% of the children. Instead of focusing on 1% of our children who you're saying are horrible kids, we need to focus on the other 99% of our children who are doing a great job.
Yeah.
That's
no,
what we need to focus on. 99% of our kids are great.
You're living in a
we're
dream
saying
world.
1% of our children are bad. Yes, we are, because that's the statistics every day. When you see our kids are that's right. When you read the paper, you would assume when you read the papers, you would assume that all of our children are bad.
No.
You would assume that, but it's only the 1% of our children who are out killing or doing things bad. The other 99% of our kids are doing well, except they are failing in our schools, in our school system.
Senator, let me say something.
No.
Please don't interrupt, because I want to ask you a question. In the city of Chicago, if we're spending $15,000 per kid per year, and we're going to continue to speak as the credits roll, but I very much want to thank State Senator Annazette Collins, who is running for re-election. First thing she has to do is win her Democratic primary. We'll try to have the candidates who are fair. We're not supporting one or the other, so we'll try to have them on as well. And we'll try to have you back, because you're a great guest, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
So, well, we've got a few minutes left here, and I want to hone in on this in the last few minutes, because if we are spending about $15,000 per kid per year, forget whether everybody's getting that, that's a lot of money. And so if we want to improve the quality of education in Chicago, as I think we can, we need to have competition for the Chicago public schools so they can get better. We need to allow students who are in the Chicago public schools to take a school voucher, $15,000, and go to the school of their choice. A private school if they prefer, or their public. No, just let me speak, because you've been speaking for 3 minutes, okay? Let me get a question out to you in a minute.
Have you been timing it?
I've been timing it, okay? Let me get it out, and I'll do it in a minute, and then you can respond.
Okay.
So that's the proposal. Give these parents who are involved a choice, and if they're not, maybe there's an aunt or an uncle, but let this kid out of a school that's not teaching him how to read or write or do math, okay? That's documented. More than 200,000 of the kids are getting that. They're in failing schools, and they're not learning. And if they don't do that, if they don't exercise that voucher for that, let them exercise and go to the charter school of their choice, because there those schools are performing where the public schools are not. Same kids, same money, they're performing. Now, are you going to let that happen? Are you going to encourage, go down to Springfield and say, let's get some legislation that has school vouchers? We've had some reform on school charters, but let's get even more, because you want choice for the kids in your district, the 5th district. School choice, school vouchers.
I want our Chicago public schools to all be equal. That's the first thing. All of them should
have
art. They are now.
They're pretty much equally bad.
They should all have art, music, recess, longer lunches, and longer days of school. And they should have all of the subjects and all of the resources in every school. If I gave my kid a voucher in East and West Garfield, and all of the schools around me are failing, where would they go? So you think
a new school would come up. If you have a failing cell company,
you think our
a new school would come in. Have you heard of free enterprise?
And miles away, and then with
all due respect, have you heard of free enterprise?
Every school in the district is failing. Almost all of the
new schools would come up who aren't failing.
All of the schools are failing. So you want all of the kids out of that district to go to another school and travel miles and miles away.
Right there, they'll bring.
Fix
you and I will start a school.
In the district.
You don't think we could start a school that could perform?
And then we're starting all over.